why we should embrace the term black. Not reject it, but embrace it. Let's talk about it. David Roots for David Roots TV. Let's get it.
I and I Africans gave civilization to the world. We gave to the world astronomy, physics, chemistry, mathematics, medicine, and an untold wealth of legacy. We are the beginning, and that is why we are proud to be black. I and I proud to be black. I am an
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Oh, beloved Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
The yoke of iron eye soul.
Ethiopia.
The glory of you
Ethiopia.
is more precious than gold.
Fire, 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 fire.
Greetings, family. This is David Roots, Dr. David Roots for David Roots TV. Now, I'm going to apologize right from the beginning. This video, I'm not sure how long it will be, but the topic that I want to talk about today, I could go on and on and on because there's so much information, so much history, so much scientific research, so much metaphysical research, so much esoteric, understandings that we could link to this particular topic. However, we are limited to, people's attention spans and what we can share realistically. However, as with most of my videos, this one possibly will be long because I need to cover this information. This topic is very important. I tend to put out topics that me as a listener would want to listen to. And these are the types of topics that I personally have an interest in. I listen to people like Crumb Snatcher. So if you don't know Crumb Snatcher, go and find his YouTube channel, Crumb Snatcher TV, okay, or Crumb TV it's called. I listen to people like Sarah Suten Seti. I listen to people like Salnata, people that have this, not only just information, but the information is well researched and it's on topics that link with me. So when I put out topics, these are topics that I personally have an interest in as an individual. And I'm sure that there are other people out there who also are questioning themselves on these particular topics, have an interest in these topics. So it's, I have to cover them properly so that the information is given out correctly and accurately. Okay, if not, I'll probably be challenged on it. And if you want to challenge any of the information, please do. That's what it's about. I'm not perfect. Leave your comments below. Make sure you subscribe. So let's get into this one. Why we should embrace the term black. Now, there's a reason why this topic has been on my mind for some time. Okay, and I'm going to give information, and let's start right from the beginning. Okay, for those people who are in the so-called conscious community, who look at conscious community information, who understand some of the different camps, like the Moors Science, not the Moors Science Temple, but the Moors of the Americas, okay, the Hebrew Israelites. You have so many different groups of people, the Nawabians, Pan-Africanists, the people who look to Kemet. It's just so many different camps of people who are embracing the Afrocentric, the melanated parts of the self. Okay, and there's lots of discussion, which is healthy, that's taking place because black people, people of African descent, previous to this time of the 20th and 21st century, haven't had as access to the amount of information that they have access to now in the internet age. So many things are being revealed, so it's allowing people to reevaluate all the stories and histories that were told about us as a people, about our ancestry. Along with this now has come different understandings and different overstandings of what's going on. Okay, and one of those differences of opinion is with the term black. Okay, so you have the camp of the Moors. The Moors, many of the Moors in the Americas, and I'm not an expert. Okay, I'm just a student, as Brother Crumb would say. I'm just I'm an observer of what's going on, but I am a very good researcher and have a lot of information. So based off of what I can see, many of the Moors, this is generalization, they would like to reject the term black. A lot of it is based around they use a lot of legal terminology, and they will say things like that the term black, and I'm going to get into this, I have a PowerPoint, so I'm kind of steering away from the PowerPoint, but they say that the term black has no legal standing in law, so we're going to talk about that. And you also have the camp of the Hebrew Israelites, who say that they are Israelites, Hebrew Israelites, and so they reject the terminology of African to describe themselves, because they say that they are the chosen people. And with that rejection of the label of African, many of them also reject the term black. So we're going to talk about all of those different things, okay? And I'm going to give some basis for it first, okay? So why is this important? Why is talking about this important? For me, I see a rejection of the term black as being part of the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Okay, so as people find themselves and find their freedom, the mental chains have been taken away, and our access to information has been increased. Part of our post-traumatic slave syndrome is to want to stay enslaved as much as possible and want to reject the things that anchor us to our history. Okay, so I see that the rejection of the term black by some of the Moorish camps, as well as the rejection of the term African by some of the Hebrew Israelite camps, as a continuation, okay, a very subtle continuation of the post-traumatic slave syndrome, okay, which has so many multifaceted layers. Okay, basically we have undergone trauma, and in order to get away from that trauma, we try to reject those things that link us back to that trauma, and I see this rejection as part of that. Okay, good. Number two, why is talking about this topic? Well, it's a term called blaxploitation. Okay, while we have people like some in the Moorish community rejecting the term black, and we have some in the Hebrew Israelite community rejecting the term African, okay, there are many others who actually, outside of the people who are of melanated skin complexion, black people, who are using and embracing and making use of the culture and of the traditions of black people. In particular, I just recently traveled, it's 2019 at the making of this video. I just recently traveled to Egypt, and as you will know, in Egypt there is a huge, the whole tourist industry is built around the artifacts that are found in Egypt, in ancient Egypt, from ancient Egypt. Okay, just watch the documentary on Tutankhamun, and talking about how Tutankhamun actually married his sister and his parents were related, and that probably played a role in his deformity, and all of this interest and all of this money and all of this tourism is built around the experiences of black people. But yet we have those within our own community who are seeking to reject that part of the self, reject that part of the ancestry. Okay? So, as I say on the PowerPoint, while others are busy exploring our culture, we are so anxious to shed our own. Okay? And that's what makes these two things very important, because over time in history, I hope that some young person, can look back to something like this video and actually get encouragement and be empowered by the information that I'm sharing as a counter argument to the things that actually are going on now, particularly in the United States, where people are being turned away or being encouraged to turn away from their African ancestry. They're being said, people are being told to look more into Native America, or the Native Americans, or the First Nation people, or the so-called indigenous people of the Americas. And so you have black people who clearly have African descent, rejecting their African descent and claiming to be Native American. You have the Moors who are saying, let's reject the phenotype that actually links many of us together, aka the black skin, okay? Black and brown skin. And then you have the Hebrew Israelites who are saying, they're not Africans, and people that look like us are not Africans. They're Hebrew Israelites. Again, rejecting a key part of their culture, which is based on the DNA, which creates that melanin in us, which then gives rise to that phenotype. Okay? So this is where we're coming at. Now, let's look at some evidence as to why we have to talk about this. I'm first going to go to this. So this is a document by the Yamasee Moors. Now, if you don't know who the Yamasee Moors are, okay, so let me just type that in really quickly. Okay, so the Yamasee Moors, all right. This is the Yamasee Moors, and immediately you'll see what comes up, the Nuwaubian Nation, okay. We, the Yamasee tribe of Native American Moors, are a branch of the Olmec Moors, also known as the Washita, the mound builders. All right. So this document was from the Yamasee Moors, aka the so-called Washita, who are basically a remnant now of the Nuwaubian nation. Okay, and one of their many reiterations as a group. Okay, and the Yamasee Moors, true to that name, are rooted in this understanding or this belief that they are of the native indigenous peoples of the United States, and that is that they, before slavery occurred, that people of their ancestry were in the North Americas as well as the Central Americas, okay, aka the Olmecs, and that is where their people came from, and that the Moors who came from North Africa were part of this group that were already in the United States, so-called United States, in North Americas, and basically they see themselves as native people. Hence, they are one of the groups that are rejecting the term black. And this is a document that they've put out. It says here, tendered to the office of the High Commission on Human Rights in accord with the UN Human Rights Council, January 12, 2018. Now, I don't know if they actually tendered this to the High Commission on Human Rights, but this is a document you can find online. Just type it in, Yamasee Moors, UN Human Rights Council, something like that, and you'll find this document online. Now, why this document is important is because right at the end, they go through all of this definition. If you know anything about the Moors, they're very big on definitions and on legal terminology, which is something that also I endorse. Why not? We need to have a foundation for the things that we are discussing. All right. So they go through a lot of definitions. Okay. And at the end, they give basically their resolutions at the end, okay, and what they're hoping to accomplish with this huge document. The document is a bit confusing, the way that they've written it, but nevertheless. So here they have their conclusions, okay, and that the conclusion is that the OHCHR, which if you could go back up, the Office of the High Commission on Human Rights, that's OHCHR, okay. So here's the conclusion, that in terms of human rights, that black has no standing in law. That's the conclusion, okay. And number two, in regards to human rights, they'd like to admit to the youth organizations and youth-led structures that the word black and those called black have no standing in law, and that they have, in other words, that they have no standing in law, so they have no rights, okay, in terms of the United Nations Charter, and that they would like to promote the correct solution for the indigenous peoples and peoples of African descent is to change the designation for these people, okay, which they talk about here. It says that they should present to youth organization, youth-led structures, that the solution to those youth that are black or visually appear black is for them to call themselves white, okay. So this is the solution, is for them to call themselves white in accord with international race and ethnicity standards, okay. And for those born in the Americas to change their race and ethnicity to white and American Indian, okay. And that's the foundation of this whole document. It's for these people that call themselves the Yamasee Moors, and they go through all of this discussions as to why they feel this way, that ultimately they would like people, the youth in particular, to call themselves white, okay. Now, the reason they talk about that, excuse me, is if we go back up, they go to the definitions here, all right, and they say white is a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa, okay, and they get this definition from the Advancing Global Higher Education, they say, all right, whereas the black or African American, a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa, okay. And they put a little quote here to say that, note, there are no black or black racial groups of Africa, okay. And so basically this document is talking about the human rights that black people in the States are being denied due to the way let's say the police violence, the lower standards of housing, economics, and they're saying that one of the solutions for them is the way that how the people are recognized in law, all right? So I'm not going to get into the depth of the article. I'm going to get into it from a different way by looking at the definitions myself. But it's clear to see here, and I pointed out, that one of the main solutions that they say is for the youth that are black or visually appear black, which they put in quotes, is for them to call themselves white in accord with international race and ethnicity standards. See pages 4 to 6, and that's where I was just now, pages 4 to 6, okay? And that's what they're talking about, that the word black has no standing in law, there's no definition for black in Black's Law Dictionary, black means, and they're going, and we're going to get into all of this, okay? So they would like to reject the term black, and my video, my teaching, is for us to say, no, we need to embrace the term black, okay? And we're going to deal with all the different things that they talk about, okay, and I'm going to counter that argument. So that's the first thing, okay, the reason why, the rationale for me producing this video, all right. The second thing is here, okay, so just take a quick listen to this. Now, many people would have seen this if you are a fan of Sonata TV, or even if you aren't, you might have seen this on the internet already. So let's just take a look. On the right, you have a brother, Tazariak, one of the leaders of one of the groups of the Hebrew Israelites, Hebrew Israelite groupings, because there are many, okay, and found in the United States. And he's talking to this young man, okay, on the streets. So just let's listen to what they have to say.
Chosen president just so black people could feel like they have a place in the world now.
Yeah, this boy real smart. This boy, because let me tell you something. Barack Obama, this young man, my bad. See, now you can say that was a cut. You get your... Listen, this young man said something real smart. Now, Obama, for Israelites, for us, Obama is not a people because he's an African. We don't teach that we're African. Obama is not a people because he's an African. We don't teach that we're African. But what he said was correct. They put that black face in office, and then black people thought we made it. Black people.
Okay, so here Tazariak, after the young man spoke, he was very impressed with him, and Tazariak starts to speak on what he had to say, and he says that, I mean, you probably heard it yourself, but just to paraphrase, he says that, you know, he talks about Obama, President Obama of the United States, and says how because Obama is an African, President Obama has African paternal ancestry, his father was an African, that Tazariak as an Israelite doesn't see himself as an African, and so those things don't apply to him. So watch the boy's reaction now.
Because there's a difference between Africans and black people in America.
So the boy says, what you mean you're not African? And Tazariak says there's a difference between, let me not paraphrase him.
Because he's an African, we don't teach that we're African. Obama is not a people because he's an African, we don't teach that we're African. But what he said was correct. They put that black face in office, and then black people thought we made it. Black people. Because there's a difference between Africans and black people in America.
He says that there's a difference between Africans and black people in America. Okay, I don't even need to go any further. You can go watch the video. The boy who is very intelligent, who has actually African ancestry, he says his father's from Ghana and, you know, something like that. Both his parents are African, okay, even though he was born in the US. He starts to challenge Tazariak, and also Sarnetta comes in and starts to back up what the boy is saying. But he just said that they're African, and we don't teach that black people in America are African. Okay, so he's disconnecting the term black from the term African, which I'm going to show you now is completely insane. All right, and this is the second reason, the second rationale for why we should be embracing the term black. People of African descent should embrace the term black and not see it as a negative thing. Okay. So you have the Moors who are saying that we need to reject the term black because the term black has no standing in law. And if it has no standing in law, then you're not going to be guaranteed any human rights. Okay. And then you have people like Tazariak and the Hebrew Israelites saying that we need to reject the genealogy of being African because people who see themselves as Israelites or the chosen people of the Bible were not Africans. Okay? Hence, there's a separation between black people from Africa and black people from America. Those are the two bases that I'm going to deal with, and why it's such a dangerous line, and why, as I said earlier, it actually is part of the post-traumatic slave syndrome, where we are now fighting against each other and looking for ways to split our community up rather than bringing our community together. Okay, so that's the basis. So I think I've done pretty good to give a basis for why this video needs to be done and why we need to talk about it. Okay, so let me just make sure we're still recording. Okay, everything's still smooth. Okay, good. So what are the arguments against the term black? Well, the first major argument that people will use outside of those communities is that race itself is a created concept. Okay, And there is a lot of truth to this, okay? In particular, they talk about post-classification, so meaning post-Linnaeus, post that time of the age of enlightenment and the scientific age, where primarily European scientists were coming up with ideas of how to classify all of the living organisms in the world. So Carl Linnaeus was one particular scientist that is of note of that, who developed a modern system for classification. And along with that modern system for classification came these ideas of race. Okay? And so people say that people like Linnaeus and people from his time, particularly the Europeans from his time frame, saw black people and Africans and people that were not white, basically non-white people, as being less than other peoples. And so they created these concepts of race, which were used as a way to make black people seem more primitive in terms of classification, and white people seem less primitive or more evolved. You also had the ideas of Charles Darwin, evolution, okay, who also would reinforce these different concepts. So they're saying people want to reject the term black because they say that the term race itself has no real scientific basis, okay? And hence why we should reject the term black, okay? In ancient times, people also say that the terms for race were not really used. People didn't describe each other by their skin color, okay? So while in the 21st century, we use skin color very widely to describe people's phenotype and their origin, okay? In ancient times, so we're talking about pre-0 AD, people did not use those sorts of terms. That's what they're saying. People would more describe people by where they came from and their ethnicity or their area, their geography, okay? Hence I put there like the Ethiopians, or someone might say the Egyptians, or someone might say the Indians, and so on, okay? Good. Now, so those are two reasons, okay? And then you have also the Black's Law definition of race, okay? You also have the rejection of the term black from the Moors, as I said, because they say that black has no standing in law, all right? So let's look at these three things first, okay? And why. Remember, we're talking about why we should embrace the term black, and these are some of the arguments against using the term black, okay? So the first one about race being a created concept, very true. And if you look at the history of the term race and the way that race was used, post-classification and post-development of the theory of evolution, the term race and race-based designations were used as ways to label and pigeonhole groups of people. Very correct. However, it's a misnomer and it's misinformation to say that descriptions of people's phenotypes, descriptions of what people look like, were not used pre those times. Okay, so I give an example. You have ancient people like the Herodotus, who many others, who would describe people based off of their phenotype and what they look like. In fact, the word Ethiopian means sunburnt. So that's someone describing those people based off of their phenotype. And if you go to the link that I'm talking about, okay, so this is the talking about the Black Egyptian theory, all right? People like Sheikh Anta Diop, who it says here, talks about the melanin samples. Sheikh Anta Diop, he used, because within looking at Egypt and the ancient Ethiopians, that field has been dominated by Eurocentric European scholars. Okay, and as we know, within media and within many of the artifacts, as they have been preserved and tried to be restored, many of the images that they give towards those people are not black. Okay, and it's people like the great Sheikh Anta Diop, who was a physicist, he was an anthropologist, he'd done so many different things, he was a language specialist. He used the microscopic laboratory analysis to measure the melanin content of skin samples from Egyptian mummies. Okay, and that led him to classify that the ancient Egyptians as unquestionably among the black races. Okay, of course, many scholars at the symposium rejected his idea, but how could they reject it when his information was based off of the analysis, okay, of melanin levels in the dermis and epidermis? All right. This goes on to give other information, but that's not what I really wanted to talk about. Where is what I wanted to talk about? This is in terms of race. Maybe I have it on my PowerPoint. No, let me go back. I wanted to actually talk about Herodotus. No, let me go here. And if I type in Herodotus description of Egypt. Okay, so it must have actually been in that article. So let me find it. Herodotus. Here we go. Yes, it actually was in that article. A second guessing myself. All right, so here it talks about Herodotus, okay, and how Herodotus described the Egyptians. All right, so let me just find the part where okay, so here it says, several ancient Greek historians noted that Egyptians had complexions that were melancrous. Okay, melancrous. Most scholars translate it as black. Okay, most scholars translate it as black. All right, let's keep going down. Apollodorus, a Greek, calls Egypt the country of the black-footed ones. A Greek poet, Aeschylus, wrote that Egyptian seamen had black limbs. Okay, so on and so on. I mean, you can just keep going and look down in here for what I'm talking about. So let's go back to here. So what I'm showing clearly there is that although the concept of race that was developed post-classification and evolution, post-evolution theory, which was used as a way to degrade people who were not of white skin, yes, we should reject a lot of those racist connotations that came with that, but it's a misnomer to say that the term race and the use of skin color, for example, was not used pre that time, because you can clearly see that pre that time, people in particular of the Egyptian origins were described by the term black. Okay, so that dispels that first argument. Okay, that people were being described by this color. Obviously they weren't described it in English, because that's the word we use now. As someone said, it's that melancrous. You have the word Ethiopians, which means burnt skin, or people that were burnt by the sun. You have the word, the word Egyptians, which comes from a Greek word. They weren't using the term black as in the English term black, but the meaning was the same. Okay, the meaning was the same. So let's get to the second one, Black's Law definition of race. Okay, and this is what the Moors in that particular document hang their hats on. okay, meaning they make the argument secure by this particular lack of, you know, the term black being in Black's Law Dictionary. All right, Black's Law Dictionary is one of the most widely accepted legal dictionaries for the United States. Now, it has to be said. So terms and legal terms are defined in this particular dictionary. So people tend to use this dictionary a lot in terms of legal matters and legal interaction. Okay, and so the Moors are the ones that said that you know, the term black does not appear in Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, so let's look at first at Black's Law Dictionary's definition of race. Okay, of race. So here it is. This is Black's Law Dictionary. You can find it online for free. It says, what is race? Definition of race. So let's go to that. Okay. So a race is a tribe, a people, or nation belonging or supposed to belong to the same stock or lineage. Okay. Race, color, or previous condition of servitude. All right. So in terms of that, you can see here that the term race refers to a tribe, a people, a nation belonging or supposed to belong to the same stock or lineage. So stock is not really a good term, is it? Because it comes to meaning property. So we're not going to deal with that term because that's the racist element of when they're using the term race. Okay, but we are going to use the term lineage. Okay, lineage, because as the young man said in this video, he goes on to say that from your black, it reflects your African lineage. And this is why we need to embrace the term black. Okay, so when we're dealing about race, first of all, arguments against the term black, I've showed already that it's been used as a term to describe people of African, and Africa is wide. Okay, so we're not just talking about Ethiopia and Egypt, we're talking about north, east, south, west. It's been used as a way to describe those people who come from the lineage of the people that are in that area. All right, and that's what Black's Law Dictionary says when it talks about race. A tribe, so not just a small tribe, a people or a nation belonging or supposed to belong to the same stock or lineage. Hence why we need to embrace the term black. Let's keep going on. Okay, so when you listen to the Moors, all right, this is the second argument against the term black. They talk about the etymology of the word black. Etymology meaning the word origin, the meaning of the word. Okay, so they'll say that we shouldn't use the term black. One is because black has no standing in law. Why? They say that the term black comes from the Spanish word negro. Okay, so, and they'll say that also that the term Moor, which was a word that was used to describe black people in North Africa and in Europe during the times of the Middle Ages, and when the Moorish people of Mauritania and North Africa were in power during those times, comes from the same root as morte. So for example, mortuary, mortgage. The Moors, meaning the Moors places in England that have basically, how would you describe the Moors? Very wet and damp places, okay, where you have a lot of rotting vegetation. They say comes from the word deaf. All right, so these are arguments against the term black, that they don't want to describe themselves by these terms. All right, so let's look how accurate all of this really is. Okay, let's look how accurate all of this really is. Okay, so I already have some of these pulled up. So let's first look at black. Let's see where it is. Okay, Let me go to my favorite dictionary, online etymology dictionary. Let's type in black. Okay, and what does it mean? So here, black as an adjective comes from the Old English black, absolutely dark, absorbing all light, the color of soot coal. It comes from PIE, okay, which means the Proto-Indian word. That's the origin of the word, Proto-Indian, which means to burn, to gleam, to shine, or to flash. And all of those words come from this same word here, all right? Bal, to shine or flash. That's the root. So let's go to the root of the word. Okay, so bal, Proto-Indian, meaning to shine, to flash or burn, also shining white, okay, meaning burning and forming words of bright colors. All right, so this is where it comes from, to shine, to flash, or to burn. All right, so there's nothing wrong with this term, this description, okay, phenotype of black. And we're going to actually see why originally people were described in that way. As the ancient Ethiopians were called, Ethiopia means land of the burnt faces, okay, the burnt skinned people, okay, and that matches now with this, to shine, to flash or burn. So of course those people who had the Proto-Indian Europeans, when they encountered black people from the lineage of Africa, what we'll call Africa, they looked as if they were burnt skin, okay? They were black, dark black, and their skin was so radiant that it actually used to shine, okay? And we still see people like that in the African continent today, okay? So there's nothing there that we should reject. Let's look at the term Negro, because people say that Negro comes from another word for deaf, meaning necro. So let's look now at that. These are all arguments against black, using the term black. So here I already have it up. Negro, member of black skin race. Okay, so member of black skin race. Where does it word come from? That's what we're interested in. So if we go down here, people were described as Negro by the Spanish or Portuguese Negro, which meant black. It comes from the Latin nigrum, okay, nominative, Niger, okay, which meant black, dark, sable, dusky, okay, applied to the night sky, a storm, the complexion. But where does it come from? It says, it comes, according to this person, a word of unknown etymology, according to Watkins, perhaps from the Proto-Indian European root of nukt, nekut, or night, okay, of night. The Latin word was also applied to the black peoples of Africa, but the usual terms were Ethiops or Ethiops and Afar, as in Africa, okay, as in Africa. So the term Negro merely meant another word for black, as it stemmed from the term nigrum, okay, the Latin term nigrum, because remember, the Spanish and Portuguese are romantic languages that come from out of the Latin. So it meant night, from the Proto-Indian word night, okay? And it goes down further to say that all the English words were more, and black are more, okay? So that's what it meant. It meant black. Negro means black. Simple as that. Now, let's look at the association of this whole idea of deaf, okay? So, if we look at Negro, here it is. Some people say it comes from the Proto-Indian. Let's look at the Proto-Indian word, okay? And I apologize for going back and forth, but we need to be etymologically correct so that people are able to see, because there's so much information people are putting out there to reject this term black, when really a lot of it's inaccurate, okay? So here they will say, oh, figuratively it means gloomy, unlucky, bad, wicked, okay? Well, who obviously felt that? And why would they actually feel that? And there's a reason why they'll feel that. And if you don't know, you need to actually go and watch Crumb Snatcher's video about that Lucifer is God. Okay, and that might scare a lot of you lot, but you need to actually watch his video to see where he's coming from and why they will refer to black and black cats and black this and black book as being something gloomy, unlucky, and bad and wicked. Okay, but it has nothing actually to do with the definition. It does, because what? It means night. Okay, and so they saw these people, these black people, they associated them with night. And of course, night is spooky to certain groups of people, certain cultures around the world. All right, so let's look at this Proto-Indian word, nect or night. Okay, and let's go to necropolis. Okay, necropolis here. So necropolis, because a lot of people say that, oh, there's a lecture by Malcolm X out there where he says that the word Negro means death because it comes from necro. Okay, when I showed you here that the root of the word Negro is nect, which means night. Okay, so let's look. So that's not really accurate, but let's look at necropolis. And it says that this is a large cemetery, from late Latin, literally city of the dead, from Greek necropolis, a burial place near Alexandria, from necros, meaning corpse, from this Proto-Indian root, neck. Okay, so the Proto-Indian European root meaning death. Neck means death. All right, now, first of all, you can see the word neck in here. Okay, so yes, it refers to night when it comes to Negro, but let's say it did refer to death. Okay, let's say Negro, and that neck does relate to death. What are they talking about when they talk about necropolis? They're talking about the ancient burial cities that our ancient ancestors created on the River Nile. Okay, as well as other places, by the way, but let's just say on the River Nile. And so when people of ancient times met and encountered the black people of the River Nile, as well as other parts, they had such a reverence, these black people, for their ancestors, that they built these cities, okay, so-called cities, to honor their ancestors. Okay, so the fact that necro and neck is within the Proto-Indian European root, within the root word of Negro, is not meaning that black refers to death in a negative way. It's referring to our ancestors and our love for our ancestors. And I'm going to talk about that later. Okay, so what are we doing? We're looking at all of these etymological arguments against the word black. One being that, you know, Negro is a negative term, okay, which we clearly showed just means black, okay, and the origin of that is from night, okay, and then people talk about necropolis, which clearly then relates to neck, has that Proto-Indian root, which then, as I said, yes, relates to death, but we are the ones now in our European mindset that think of death in a negative way, when really death was a big part of life for our ancient African ancestors and for traditional and tribal people around the world. Death was an important part of life, okay, because it meant transitions for the ancestors. So it wasn't a negative thing, because remember, these words were used to describe us, and people that came down to those areas would see these huge cities and monuments and, you know, temples dedicated to the dead. And they were spooky. They thought it was scary. And really, for us, even when you go to Egypt today, you see these huge pyramids. What are they? They are monuments and different things devoted towards our ancestors. Okay, so let's look at the term Moor. So people say Moor comes from morte. And if I go back to this argument here from the Moors, you can see here one of the arguments that they say is that where is it? I just saw it here. Here it is. That black and African American racial categories are internationally recognized as civilitas mortis, meaning dead in the eyes of the law. How can United Nations protect a family that is dead in the law, right? So a lot of this this terminology that you keep hearing this concept coming up about black means death and black is not recognized in law and so on and so on. Black was a description, okay? It wasn't a nationality, and we're going to get, I don't want to go ahead of myself, but let's look at the term more, because a lot of people reject the term more, okay? So, because they say it comes from another word meaning dead, okay? So let's look at more. So more, etymology, comes from the Greek moros, meaning from the Latin morus, inhabitant of Mauritania. Okay, where is Mauritania? Northwest Africa. It's just a word that it's what the Romans called Northwest Africa because Moor meant black. So they called Northwest Africa black land. Okay, from the Greek moros, perhaps a native name or else cognate meaning similar, the same as black. Okay, so Moor clearly comes from the word, again, it's a description for the word black. Now let's look down. That's the capital. That's with the capital, Moor. So they'll go down and they'll say about Moors, meaning these places, these land places that are very swampy and, you know, there's a lot of decay and decomposition. You find them mostly in colder climates, especially in England. You use that term more in Europe, okay? So here, more, which is the small m, perhaps related to mer, coming from the idea of swamp or sea, as in mermaid, okay? Or from the root mer, meaning to die, hence dead land. Now, this is why people say they want to reject the term more. Either way, whether you're using it to describe people who were black and how the people in the Middle Ages described people as Moors because they were black, again, reflecting a phenotype, or if they used it to describe because of the root word of mer, meaning to die, that again links back to the association with African people, black people, with ancestor worship, okay? However, these are two different things. This is a small m, that's a large m. Really, the term Moor meant black and dark people. That's simply what it meant, okay? So, no matter which way you want to look at it, there are arguments against using this term black, whether you say it's coming from, you know, you want to reject the term Negro because it comes from necro, comes from neck, which means death, or it comes from Moor, which comes from mer, which means death. There's a reason why these terms were used to describe our people. One is that the skin was so dark that they were used, that yes, they were described by their nationality, but realistically or from the evidence, they were described by their color. They were the black people, okay? And two, they did have descriptions that linked with death because a big part of African culture across the spectrum of what we call African culture links to ancestry and ancestor worship, okay? In regards to temples, in regards to, what's the terminology I'm looking for? In regards to having shrines, okay? So even if you go to West Africa today, a huge part of that is based off of ancestral worship and what some people would find spooky, meaning, oh, you're talking about ancestry, you have shrines, you have altars, you have temples built for your dead. That's what we believed in. That was a big part of our culture, okay? So it's not something that you should look towards being down against. That's part of the post-traumatic slave syndrome that's in your head, okay? And I just went over the legal definition, okay? Actually, so now let's look at the Black's Law argument against black. So this was the etymological argument against black. Let's look at the legal argument against black, where they say that the term black has no standing in law, and how let's see how accurate that is. Okay. So let's check the time for the video. So far I've been recording for an hour, and as I said, the topics in this video, the topics and the content of this issue are things that take time to explain. So I apologize for the length, but let's keep going. So now we're going to look at the legal terms relating to this. Okay, so we started out with race. All right, we already talked about race, and we said how a race is a tribe, people, or nation belonging or supposed to belong to the same stock or lineage. Okay, race, color, or previous condition of servitude. This is something from the Constitution. Okay, so Black's law defines race as a tribe, people, or nation belonging or supposed to belong to the same stock or lineage. Okay, so that's what race is, but we're looking more so at the term black. All right, in Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, so let's first look up white. Okay, because that's the argument. They'll say that black doesn't exist in the Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, so let's first look up white. So here they'll say white. Let's go back to the argument. Down the bottom. Which is here, that the solution to those youth that are black or visually appear black is for them to call themselves white. Okay, to call themselves white. Let's go back up to page 4-6, where they actually talk about it. Why do they want black people to call themselves white? Because they said that black the word black has no standing in law. There's no definition for blacks in Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, they said that black means bright, shining, glittering, pale. Clearly this definition of the word black does not apply to black people, which is incorrect. Okay, obviously it doesn't mean pale, but that's the old English for black. That's not the Proto-Indian root of it. Okay, of the word. It meant burning. That's where the shining came from. And they're saying that black is dead within the law. Okay, why? Because it does not appear within Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, so let's look at the basis of this. So let's look at white first, because they want people to call themselves white. White. A Mongolian is not a white person within the meaning of the term as used in the naturalization laws of the United States. The term applies only to persons of the Caucasian race. Okay, of the Caucasian race. This is from Black's Law Dictionary. So, where's Caucasian? Remember it said race. So if we go back to race, the definition of race. Race is a tribe, people, or nation belonging to the same lineage. And here, Black's Law Dictionary is telling you that white means that this term applies to people of the Caucasian race, meaning the Caucasian lineage. So, where is that lineage? Sorry. Caucasian. Let's go to maps. Actually, let's go away from maps. Let's go to Caucasian. The Caucasian race, also Caucasoid or Europoid, is a grouping of human beings historically regarded as biologically taxon, has usually included ancient and modern populations from Europe, Western Asia, Central Asia, South Asia, North Africa, and the Horn of Africa. Okay, so how could it include those people from North Africa and the Horn of Africa? Well, let's look at the etymology. It's implying a resemblance to the native inhabitants of the Caucasus. Okay, where are the Caucasus? This is the Caucasus: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Russia. That's the Caucasus. Now I can put it in maps. Okay, so now let's zoom out. Okay, to the Caucasus, Armenia, Georgia, and Russia. So we're talking about here. All right, so this is the lineage, okay, based off of Black's Law Dictionary, which says a tribe, people, or nation belonging or supposed to belong to the same stock or lineage, okay, of those people that are white. They come from the Caucasus Mountains, which are these areas: Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, okay, where else? Russia, okay, which is here, okay? This is what they're talking about, all right? So clearly, for the Moors to say that they would like the youths, indigenous youth they call them, okay, so black people, to call themselves white is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense based off of their own legal frameworks. Okay, now some of them are going to say, well, what about the North African here, okay, because it says North Africa and Horn of Africa. If anybody knows anything about Africa today, and as well as all the way back as the 1400s to 1300s, even back to the times of Alexandria, that those parts of Africa have been invaded basically and occupied by people from the Caucasoid areas. In fact, much of Egypt in particular has very strong links with Turkey. The Turks actually occupied Egypt for many years, all right? The Ottoman Empire took over Egypt for many years. And so that's where that particular aspect comes from. It's not talking about the people that have this definition, okay, of being black, of being burnt, of looking like night, okay? So that's not referring to them. So that's dealing with why they say, first of all, that they're saying that black has no standing in law, so we should refer to ourselves as white people, which makes absolutely no sense, because that's not our lineage based off of the term race when it comes to Black's Law Dictionary. But black doesn't exist within the Black's Law Dictionary. They're correct. But let's look at terms that do exist, like Negro. Okay, so let's look at Negro in Black's Law Dictionary. What is Negro? Negro, the word Negro means a black man, that should say. The U for some reason is replaced in a lot of them. A black man, one descended from the African race. So why would you want to reject the term black and replace it with the term white, when white clearly shows you in Black's Law Dictionary refers to the Caucasoids, people from the Caucasoid lineage, when the word Negro means black, and it meant somebody descended from the African race? Because in Black's Law Dictionary, again, just to reiterate the point, we're talking about lineage, because that's what it's all about. this term black we need to embrace because it reflects our lineage. Right back to what the young man was saying, it reflects our lineage. That he says to Tazariak, who's supposed to be an elder, that from your black, it means that you are African, and we'll listen to that a bit later. Okay? So, this thing about being dead in law, okay, it's not true. Okay? It's not true. It's not true because, first of all, within law, there's concepts of, how people describe themselves. Okay, for example, I saw someone breaking into my house and, it was a black man. That's just a description. That's not really gonna affect you in terms of the law. All right? Now, in terms of being dead in law, there are other things within the law that if we really wanted to use them, obviously we could use, like the word Negro. You went back, you see things like colored and mulatto and so on, Negro ancestry. But those are old terms. People don't really use those terms anymore. Okay? I mean, even if we look at the term civil mortalis, what they're talking about. Civil more. Oops, sorry. Let's go back to page 4. Civil mortis. Okay, here it is. Civilly dead, dead in the view of the law, the condition of one who has lost his civil rights and capacities and is accounted dead in the law. So, we all understand what the Moors are trying to say, that people who have African descent need to claim more recognition within the law. And one thing I do agree on, I think I must have skipped that slide. Oh, here it is, next, actually. One thing I do agree on is that the term black does not denote our nationality, okay? Hence why within law, you are not afforded any particular rights when it comes to saying that you're a black person. In fact, within our society, you might even be, degraded those rights. But that's because of our society is founded on white supremacy, and we live in a racist society, okay? And it doesn't denote our nationality in some ways. But what it never did. It was never meant to denote our nationality, but it did denote our origin, and it denoted our lineage as African people. And when it comes to the term African also, as we saw earlier, it refers to Afar. The Afar were a tribal group within North Africa that the Romans encountered. And so they called that part of Africa that they used to interchange and engage with Africa, as in Afar, the people, the land of the Afar, the people of the dust, basically. Afar refers to dust. So, in the sense that the Moors say that the term black has no standing in law, it's civil mortis, okay, meaning it's dead in the law. It doesn't afford you any protection. You're completely correct about that. And by establishing our nationality through establishing our lineage will help that. I definitely agree with those aspects. Hence why we need to look at ways to become more sovereign. But we shouldn't disconnect that sovereignty from what is real. Okay? We shouldn't make imaginary links, for example, with the Native Americans or, with places that actually don't exist in order to create those rights. Okay? And that's where the problem lies. All right? So what I've tried to do in the first half of this is talk about why this issue is important. I talked about several arguments against the term black, and I presented the arguments on race. I presented the arguments on the etymological arguments, and I presented the legal arguments. And I've given a counter argument to each one of those as to why the use of the term black actually is being spoken against, but realistically is something that we should actually embrace. Okay, so let's go into my arguments for the term black. Okay, so for the term black and why we need to embrace it. Okay, and this links to not only our lineage as African people, but the metaphysics and the esoteric science behind what we call black. Remember, black is just an English word. We're referring to a particular physical, scientific attribute, okay, and why we should embrace being labeled that in terms of our lineage. So the first part, the physical property of the term black, or of the meaning of black. So what is black actually? Black refers to the absorption of all light. Okay, black is not a color. Black is the absence of color, because all of the colors, all of the wavelengths that your eyes are picking up are being absorbed into that material. Okay, and we're talking about the visible wavelengths, but we're also talking about the invisible wavelengths within the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so from a physical property, okay, the term black is a positive thing because it means the absorption of all of the energy, all of the colors, all of the frequencies, all of the wavelength. And so when they refer to our people, the people of our lineage, African people, as black, what they were actually seeing with the eyes were a people that were absorbing all of the energy that their eyes could pick up. And they would see these black people who were so dark that they looked burnt, they looked like they were gleaming and shining. Okay, and of course we black people, African people, use lots of things on their skin. They still to today use different clays and oils and shea butters and all sorts of oils that they will use. Okay, all right. So when you combine that with the sun, you combine that with the land that was around them, which could be quite dry, so there's a lot of light reflecting, and then you combine it with the darkness of the skin, it forms a mirror effect. Okay, look at a mirror. In the back of a mirror, there's a black surface that allows the reflection of there's a black surface followed by a silver surface, and that allows the reflection of the light back at you. Okay, and so when you had these very dark-skinned people, there's almost as they radiated, they were shining. Okay, but black means the absorption of all light, and it's not a color. Okay, and interchangeably within the Black's Law Dictionary, you saw the term black, but you also saw the term dark, and it means two different things. Okay, whereas black means the absorption of all the light, whereas dark refers to the absence of light. But both of them are powerful, very powerful, and both of them relate to us, okay, as a people. I'm not as dark-skinned as my mother, for example, and you have some very dark people. The darkest people that I've seen, I've been to Africa several times. I've been to Tanzania, Ethiopia. I've been to Ghana. Recently, I've been to Egypt. Okay, but the darkest people that I've ever seen come from the Sudan region. Okay, and people would say that their skin is so dark it was almost purple. Okay, so the skin is so dark it's such a rich black color. Okay, so we're talking about our ancient ancestors, and this darkness, it relates to the same darkness as we saw earlier when it came to that root word of night. The people of the night, okay? The dark-skinned people, all right? The black people. So this is a positive thing to have this terminology that's been given to us for millennia. For millennia, people of our lineage have been described this way, okay? Good. For example, Ethiopian, aka Ethiops, means fiery or sunburnt. There's many ways you can look at it, but they were the people of the sun, the people that were burnt by the sun. And when we say Ethiopians, we're not referring to the Ethiopians that are in Ethiopia today. The Ethiopians that the Greeks, like Herodotus, would have referred to are those people that were the builders of the pyramids. They were the mothers of the Egyptians. Okay, the mother civilization of the Egyptians. Okay, and we're talking about people that now you would call Sudanese, or you call from Uganda, from Chad. These were the Ethiopians of that time. Okay, and what phenotype do they have? They are dark, they are black, and they are sunburnt. Okay, fiery people. Okay, and this is something that we should understand reflects our lineage. So remember, we're reviewing arguments for the term black. All right. What's some other arguments? Why should we embrace the term black? Well, what's happened is over time, people have understood the power of black, okay, and of the black, let's just say color for now, or the energy of being black. And so a lot of things within our society is based off of these rankings of color, okay, or these colors. So for example, we can look at the military. Let's look at the highest ranking within the military, okay. So the highest ranking within the military, so I put in here highest rank uniform British royalty. So you'll see members of the royal family, okay. The highest ranking, and it's clear to see that the highest ranking color is black. Okay, here you have the queen, the queen. Here you have some of the queen's children, all right, and they're wearing black. All right, so let's look. Let's go to all highest ranked uniform British royalty, and here you have the queen's husband. Can't remember what his name is, okay, but he's wearing his high ranking uniform with all of his medals. And what color is the uniform? It's black. Okay, let's not dwell on that too much. All right, you can go and do your own research. Somebody say, well, that's just the UK. Let's look at the US military. Within UK military, again, I typed in highest ranked uniform US military, okay? And you're going to see, of course, you're going to see black again as the highest ranking for their formal, not their field uniform, but their formal uniforms. It's going to be black, okay? Army CEO's highest ranking, he's wearing black, okay? Let's put in here Army service uniform, okay? They're all black. Highest rank US military officer. Who's the highest ranked US military officer? US Army ranks list. Let's see who's the highest rank. The General of the Army. 5-star general. Well, his army's wearing green. He's in the army. Vice Chief of Staff. Okay, it's clear to see that the wearing of the black uniform is one of the highest ranks, or the highest ranking officers within the say Army Chief of Staff. Here we go, the Army Chief of Staff. When they're wearing their formal uniform, they're wearing black, okay, because that reflects the ranking that it holds. Okay, let's look at martial arts. Okay, and this is within various martial arts. Okay, this is karate, black belt is the highest. What's this one? I could look within Shaolin Kung Fu, black belt is the highest. Okay, Taekwondo, black belt is the highest. All right, so within the ranks that are reflected within the military or within the martial arts, the black rank is the highest rank. So why would you have a rejection based off of all of the information so far to be described, your lineage being described as black? Okay. How about the priesthood? Let's look at the priesthood. So let's look at the, I think I already have some pictures up. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. So here's the Orthodox Church. This is the Eastern Orthodox Church, and here's a good picture here. So here you see the Pope. He's wearing white, and you know, of the Roman, the Latin. This is the Latin version. But within the Eastern, the oldest tradition, he's wearing black. Okay, he's wearing black. All right. Here again, you see them wearing black. Okay. The highest ranking here, standing next to the Pope, he's wearing black with the shroud. The Orthodox Church head, he's wearing black. Okay. So within the ranking of the Orthodox, okay, and again within the, you can look, I think within the Ethiopian. Let's look at the Ethiopian Orthodox. Look at the Patriarch. Okay, so right now he's wearing gold. So that's the Ethiopian Orthodox. But you can see here when they're meeting, here they're meeting the Coptic Orthodox is meeting the Ethiopian Orthodox. They're wearing the black garments. The black garments is the highest ranking. When they want to meet the highest ranking people of their separate divisions, that's what they're wearing here. Okay. I actually saw this man when I went to Egypt. We visited this particular church, the Egyptian, the Coptic Orthodox Church. Okay, so when we're talking about ranking, ranks, black, the black rank is the highest rank. Okay, anyone that does martial arts know that the black belt is the highest. Anyone that's in the military know that when you see somebody with that black uniform, you better salute. Okay, when it comes to the religion, the people wearing black are those ones that are the most honored and most respected, and there's a reason for that, and it links back to the roots of the word black, relating to ancestry, relating to, as someone was said, death, meaning the link between this world and the next world and the power that is associated with that. Okay, good. And that's why I said there's a lot we could get into when we're not going to get into too deep with everything. So again, another argument for the word black. So let's look at that soil fertility. Now remember that someone said that, okay, black relates to, and the term Moor relates to the Moors, and black relates to necropolis, meaning the dead lands, and Moor relates to the dead lands, and so on, and seeing that as something negative. Okay, but what they're referring to on a deeper level is that black relates to soil and to returning to the earth and to the soil. The richest soil is that black soil. Okay. Yes, that's where decomposition is going to take place. Well, what's decomposition? Decomposition is return. Okay, so how does this relate to the term black? Well, what's the richest soil? Okay, what's the richest soil? Let's see, where did I have it? So many tabs. Okay, so the richest soil, I just typed in. Where was it? Here. I just typed in, where is the most fertile soil found worldwide, by country and by biome? Okay, and it goes down and it talks about this, it talks about the fertile soil and so on and so on. All right, and it talks about the different soils. All right, and it talks about where did I find it? Countries with the most fertile soil by soil order. Okay, by soil order, and it talks about the different soil orders. Oh, here, I think this is where, here it is. Okay, which biome has the most fertile soil in the world? Immediately below is a map of the world's soil order. Each soil order has different characteristics that make it more or less fertile. here. And it says here, Mali soils are some of the world's most fertile soils, including the black soils with high organic content. So let's look up, what's a Mali soil? And I typed in Mali soil. Okay, I typed in Mali soil. And this is what you get for Mali soil, okay? Mali soil has high black organic content. That's the Mali soil there. All right, where can you find them? You can find them all around the world. All right, Mali soil. How do you pronounce it?
Molisol.
Mali soil. A soil of an order comprising temperate grasslands, soils with a dark, humus-rich surface layer containing high concentrations of calcium and magnesium. Okay, so that's Mali soils. They are some of the world's richest soils. All right. So even with the term black, okay, and why we should embrace it. Why? Because the richest things, those things that are the most fertile, like ourselves, our people, you know, are descriptive of black in color for a reason. Okay, and obviously there's a metaphysical and a physical and a geophysical reason that those soils that are most fertile are that black in color, and that's because of all of the minerals that are involved in those soils. Okay, good. Arguments for black. Melanin, right? What is melanin? Let's look at melanin. Okay. All my tabs open from all of my research. Well, what's melanin? Melanin means from the Greek word melas, meaning black or dark. It's a broad term for a group of natural pigments found in most organisms. Okay, so the melanin that we have in our skin that gives that black color, especially those people who have the strongest lineage towards the African descent, okay, have the very dark skin, they have the most melanin. It's that black color. Melanin itself means black. So why would you not want to use that term black? Why would you want to be called, for example, like the Yamasee Moore said, to be termed white people? Why would you want you to, and I'm not being racist here, I'm talking about, that's not our lineage. Your lineage is not from the Caucasoids, okay? And also that's not your phenotype. When you look at you know, your people and your ancestors, you're going to see that black skin, okay? And the things that we've looked at so far, like the physical property, absorption of all of that energy, is a positive thing, okay? This is how we would describe sun people at the sun, sunburnt. Why? Because we need that sun. The sun is going to help us to create vitamin D. Please go watch my video on the you know, why the secrets of why black people need Africa, why they thrive on Africa. Okay, it's on David Roots TV. The ranking, the highest ranks are those that are of the black ranks. Okay, and the most fertile soil are those that are black in color. For a reason, they contain certain elements and minerals and certain biochemical properties that make them the most fertile. Okay, and then we're also showing that melanin itself, the pigment that's in our skin, which turns darker the more the sun hits us, the word itself means black. The same melanin we can find within our brains. Okay, but yet you're saying to people, do not label yourself by black. Okay, I'm showing multiple arguments. We're almost done now. Again, those foods that are black are the superfoods. Okay, so we have here blackberries. Here we have here blueberries. Okay, which are very, very dark. The best ones are dark, so much so that they're almost pretty black. Okay, we have here black plums and black cherries, and that's just a few of the. And I put a link here, but there's no need to go into the link. But it talks about the. In fact, let's go into the link because it says the reasons why these black foods are so important and called superfoods is because of the here. Antho. Here we go. Okay. Because why? Because of the anthocyanins, and proanthocyanidins, okay, that are in there. These are types of antioxidants, and it's these antioxidants that are found in high, extremely high amount. Look, 50% more of the antioxidants known as flavonoids and anthocyanins, and all of these very powerful nutrients, micronutrients that help to heal the body are found within black foods. And there's a reason why. I might do another video on that, of how the minerals connect to, for example, the fertile soil being black and the superfoods being black. What is it about those minerals and the combination of them from a biophysiological level that causes that black color? Well, what is it? Is that, again, it's the energy that's being absorbed by those minerals causes you to see those fruits and that soil as black because of the range of minerals in there. All right. And that shows you how powerful these black foods are. Hence why we need to embrace this term as a phenotypic description for us in no matter what language. Whether it's English, someone says black. Whether it's Spanish, someone says Negro. Okay, or whether it's Greek, someone says Ethiopian. They all, whether it's North African or Latin, which someone says Moor. They all mean the same thing. They mean that dark skin color. Okay, crystals and precious stones. Okay, so for example, on the right I have onyx. All right. On the left, I have shungite, which is a type of carbon crystal, very important for purification, water purification, things like that. And there's so many more black stones. You even have black diamonds, all right? But these stones are very, very valuable. Why? Because of that black color and that the way that they absorb light, causing them to have that black color. Okay, and this is what we are. We are crystal bodies. All right, our bodies contain the minerals that give rise to the absorption of light in the way that they do. And the key element for that, obviously, is melanin. So we should not reject the term black. Okay, we shouldn't reject it. It's something that we should embrace and be proud of, and teach our children to be proud of. Okay. Okay, we're almost done. So let's take it up a notch and let's look at the chakra system. Okay, now within the chakras are different energy portals that are recognized within the Indian Hindu culture. That's where the origin of the chakra comes from. Okay, but other cultures like the Buddhists, which comes from the Indian, they also recognize some of these elements also, okay? And it just refers to energy centers and the way that the energy that we have, and we're not talking about physical energy, we're talking about spiritual energy, life energy, okay? How it moves and flows within our body. And so generally people recognize 7 chakras, which stem from the root chakra all the way up to the top, which is the crown chakra. And each one of these chakras can be associated with different colors. And you can see an article, a little image that I stole off the internet on the left, where you have basically the colors of the rainbow, Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So red being the bottom, root chakra, and violet being the top, crown chakra. Okay? And the idea of meditation is to cycle this chakra. Okay? Bring it up and down and throughout the body, okay, as well as to link obviously with the universe also, okay. So that's going to get a bit deep and a bit metaphysical, so let's not go down that avenue too much. But when you look at the chakras, how does it relate to the black color? Okay, as you can see, black is not on there. While when you look at the diagram on the left, you see a more linear pathway going from the bottom to the top. But when it gets to the top, what happens? Because it says red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But anyone that knows the electromagnetic spectrum, you have something that's beyond red, okay, which is microwaves and radio waves, and you have something infrared, and you have something that's beyond violet, which are the ultraviolet, and X-rays, and then gamma rays. Okay, so really it's actually cyclic in nature, and that's what the color wheel shows on the side. So you can see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, okay, what they call a magenta, okay, and violet here, okay, and then they go back to red. But this is kind of an inaccurate way of portraying it, okay. This is a better way of portraying it, because this looks at it more from a three-dimensional point of view, and it's showing that when you're looking down, okay, and you look, in this case you're looking sideways, but if you're looking down, you'd see rings, okay, these rings, okay, and these rings are intertwining with each other, okay. So where is the black? Well, the black here is in the center, okay, the black hole, in other words. It's the combining of all the chakra energies, energy systems together, okay, the combining of all the energy systems together. All right, and there's this article here, there's an article about it. I put the link here, okay, so you can go look it up yourself, but it's a very deep article, and he talks about how the black hole principle combines with the chakra system and the biology, okay, so the principle by which we are pulling in energy, that we are a mini universe, and that the chakra system is intertwined with each other, and in the center of that you have the black chakra, meaning the absorption of all of the chakras within one. Okay, so again we're showing that how important and how powerful the terminology of black and blackness is, and why it's something that we should embrace and not something that we should reject. Okay, I could do a whole video on this particular slide alone, but let's just leave it there, okay, because we're looking at the different arguments for black. Scientists are beginning to understand this, because they're talking about dark matter and realizing that dark matter is a form of matter that they think accounts for approximately 85% of matter in the universe, and about a quarter of its total energy density. Okay, and as I said earlier, dark matter, there's a difference between dark and black. Where they say dark matter is called dark because it does not appear to interact with observable electromagnetic radiation such as light, and thus is invisible to the entire electromagnetic spectrum. While we are also, people who are of black skin are called dark, and there's a connection between those two. Okay, but the thing, what I'm trying to say here is that people, our ancestors who were of black skin, were seen as dark because they were seen as mysterious. They were seen as the people of the night. They were seen as the people that dealt with ancestor worship or with the dead. Okay? And scientists are now beginning to understand how those things that are unseen are probably more important to our existence and to the physical laws of the universe than the things that we can see. And it's the same for our people. The things that are unseen and ununderstood about our ancestors are probably more important to our existence than those things that are seen. Hence why the ancients put so much emphasis on the ancestor worship and on the so-called dead, and built whole cities and monuments and shrines to that, and still do to this day. Okay? And if you look now again, Kemet, which means land of the black soil. Kemet, which is the ancient word for Egypt. Okay? Yes, necro means death. It comes from the word death, but why? necropolis was a city that we built for the people, for our ancestors. Okay, if you look at Kemet, etymology dictionary, Kemet, one entry found, it comes up with Egypt. Okay, so the Egyptian name Kemet means black country, possibly in reference to the rich delta soil. What's the soil like? The soil of the delta, meaning in the Nile, is black. Okay, the Arabic name for Egypt is Misra, from Misraim, the name of the son of biblical Ham. And who was Ham? He was the black son. Okay, so you cannot get away from it. You cannot get away from the importance of the phenotypic description, okay, and the importance of that term black, and why it's something that we should embrace. Okay, and as I say here, black symbolizes fertility. Think of the soil, think of the fruits, the superfoods. It symbolizes not just death, but within death, like in the soil, new life and resurrection. And this is where it all comes together. Okay, the resurrection, hence with the Nile soil, when the people of Egypt used to put so much importance on the flooding of the Nile, and then it will come back, it will dry out, and you reveal the dark soil that was ready to plant. Okay, so first you'd have this flooding, you know, this moor, as you want to call it, where everything was swampy, things were decaying, and then from that will come the new life in the same black soil. Okay, so this is where we get to the heart of the matter of why we should embrace the term black, because as you can see here, with all of the different topics I've covered, black relating to the highest rank, the absorption of all light and energy, of people of the sun, okay, optimum nutrition, precious value, and even death, aka our ancestors. These are all the topics that I've covered. All of that combines to the fact that we are a mystic people, meaning we are a dark people, a mysterious people. Okay, and this mystery comes right from the womb, when we're surrounded in blackness. Okay, and we do that, have that mystery right from the time of being in the womb to the time that we meet the ancestors. And here you can see a picture of a pharaoh who's now meeting the god of the dead, Osiris, who has the dark green malachite skin. Okay, and this means that he is now in the underworld. He's being resurrected, and this is the cycle from being within our mother's womb, in the blackness of the womb, to then returning to that same cosmic blackness. And that's the mystery that our ancestors, I'm not saying they understood it, because I don't know the depths of what they understood, but that is what others saw about them, hence why they labeled them these terms. They labeled them the Ethiopians. They labeled them the Moors. They labeled them the Negroes. They labeled them these mysterious people, the people of the dead. Okay? And how does it relate? My final slide, I tried to do a little mind map linking all of the terms. And all of the terms link back to the fact that we are the original people, or we have ancestry. Me, I'm from mixed heritage. I have Portuguese heritage, and this is from not just DNA, but from actual, birth records and stuff. I know I have Portuguese heritage, people from Madeira. I have European heritage. I know that because of my name that I carry. I don't know, who they were, but I, probably from slavery, I picked up an European name, and I have African heritage. I know that as a fact, okay? And I'm more African than I am anything else, but I definitely have those other lines within me. But I'm proud to say that I have African heritage. I have heritage of the black people. Who were they? They were the people of the Moors, meaning the black Moors, or the black Africans, people of the dust, the Afar, the original people. They were the necro people, the people of necropolis, meaning the people that did ancestor worship. Who were they? They were the original people. They were people that looked like this young lady here from the Sudan, who had skin that was so dark that it gleamed and shined. Okay, especially when they smiled, because their teeth were so white that you could see them at nighttime with the skin being dark, but the white gleaming teeth. Okay, because their bodies were so full of these powerful minerals, they were untouched by the diets and the negative habits that we are doing today. We should be proud of that. We shouldn't reject this term black, but we should understand it so we can use it as a way to empower not only ourselves but our children. Okay, and I reject the idea that was written about earlier from the Yamasee Moors, where they feel that in order to claim our human rights, we need to relabel ourselves as white people based off of legal understandings, when I showed that that's incorrect. And I reject the terminology of the Hebrew Israelites, as that young man rejected it when he was talking to the Hebrew Israelite Tazariak, where the Hebrew Israelites is saying that they're not African, because black and African and Ethiopian and people of that continent, the original people, all mean the same thing etymologically and phenotypically. They refer to the original people, to our ancestors. So this has been a long video, and I've even just scratched the surface. I'm just skimming many of the topics just for the sake of time. Okay, please go and do your own research. But it's such a powerful topic, and even now I'm starting to actually think about the depths of where we can go. Even the term depths, what does it mean? Going deep in the dark. You look at the Bible, it talks about from the dark, before there was light, there was dark upon the waters of the deep. This is the metaphysics and the esoteric, the hidden sciences behind this terminology of the term black, which we've only skimmed the surface for. Empower yourself. Increase your knowledge and your understanding. This is David Roots TV. Please subscribe and share the video with other people. Shout out to all of the teachers, Crumb Snatcher, Sarah Sutton Seti, Ashra Kurisi, Sarnetta, Pharaoh said that. All these teachers out there and educators for helping me to put forth information like that. Peace and love.